Saint Agnes of Rome was a beautiful young woman born during the 13th century. She was raised into Christian faith by an affluent family in ancient Rome. She had a very close relationship with God and devoted her innocence and purity directly to Him. Many men attempted to marry her, thinking that they would be the lucky one to take her hand in marriage. However, she would not give in to their offers because she believed that Jesus was and could be her only spouse. One of the rejected marriage attempts ultimately resulted in her death. Born into the wealthy class and being a beautiful young woman, Saint Agnes attracted many admirers of high caliber, especially one in particular, the son of Prefect Sempronius. He promised her wealth and prosperity if she would only agree to marry him, but she still refused. Details of her story are unreliable, but legend holds that the young man, slighted by Agnes's resolute devotion to religious purity, submitted her name to the authorities as a follower of Christianity. Being a Christian under the rule of Emperor Diocletian resulted in constant torture and, in serious cases, even death. As a result of her denial, she was accused of being a Christian and sentenced to death. After St. Agnes's refusal of marriage, the son of Prefect Sempronius was outraged. He had her dragged completely naked through the streets of Rome, all the way to a house of prostitution. There are multiple ways St. Agnes is rumored to have escaped from this dilemma. Her first option was to look to God and pray. While she was praying, her hair started to grow longer and longer until it covered her entire body. Multiple men tried to rape her, but they were instantly blinded. Prefect Sempronius' son was found dead on the spot because he was blinded due to the way he looked at St. Agnes. However, St. Agnes prayed for him. He was brought back to life and she was released from the house of prostitution. Her purity was extraordinarily conserved, but the son of Prefect Sempronius was not in the least done with her yet. St. Agnes was blamed for the near-death experience of Prefect Sempronius' son and put on trial, even though she was not the one who did anything wrong. He then wanted to let Agnes go, but fearing being banished, put a lieutenant in his place who first tried to kill Agnes by a fire which didn't harm her. She was secured to a post with a pile of wood beneath her. When lit, the pile of wood would not burn and the flames segregated opposite ways from her. You could see the executioner tremble as though he himself had been condemned, and his right hand shake, his face grow pale as he feared the peril of another, while the maiden feared not for her own. The soldier was tremendously frustrated that St. Agnes did not show any sign of fear or panic to the sight of the sword he was holding above her head. He stood on the altar for a moment, confused because he did not understand how she was not afraid of dying. Before long, St. Agnes said, "It would be an injury to my spouse to look on anyone as likely to please me. He who chose me first for himself shall receive me. Why are you delaying, executioner? Let this body perish which can be loved by eyes which I would not." The soldier grew even more angry, pulled out his sword, and beheaded St. Agnes on the post. She died a martyr. When the blood of St. Agnes dispersed along the ground, many Christians cleaned it up with their clothes out of respect toward her. She was buried next to the Via Nomentana in Rome. Shortly after her death, her foster sister, Saint Emerantiana, was found praying by her tomb. Saint Emerantiana insisted that she was the daughter of Saint Agnes's caretaker. She was later stoned to death because she refused to leave Via Nomentana and scolded the anti-Christian people for taking the life of her foster sister. Saint Agnes is the patron saint of many things, including girls and virgins, because of the tribulations suffered by her during her brief life. She often appears in artwork with lambs to depict her innocence. Saint Agnes is also a symbol of purity and acts as an inspiration for people to stand up for their beliefs. Saint Agnes was a woman of great faith and trust in God. She was willing to give up her life rather than deny her love for God. There are very few dependable references involving the life of Saint Agnes, due to the fact that she was so young when she died, that she had no time to write anything herself, and that there were few accounts written about her. St. Ambrose's De Virginibus was the last account written about St. Agnes. Some portions of the De Virginibus are read at the nighttime liturgy. The value of the later Passion of the saint is enhanced by the fact that various antiphons and responsories in the office are derived from it. St. Ambrose's De Virginibus has an auspicious start. It begins with the birthday of St. Agnes. St. Ambrose speaks of St. Agnes in praise and approval. He significantly emphasizes St. Agnes's age. It was superior to tears, promises, tortures, and death itself, with a courage wholly worthy of a man. St. Ambrose points out that St. Agnes went through many frights, punishments, and threats, all because of one man's stubbornness. He continues by alerting men to regard her suffering and vow to always be respectful of the woman they love. He urges children to be brave and to never act as unjustly as the son of Prefect Sempronius. In addition, he sees that St. Agnes's suffering is something that the married should never be tempted into doing, and that the unmarried note the example of the dangers of marriage. St. Ambrose continues by writing that he does not believe that he is even worthy to speak of St. Agnes, or even to call her that, because she is so commendable of great praise. Notably, he writes, in devotion beyond her age, in virtue above nature, she seems to me to have borne not so much a human name as a token of martyrdom, whereby she showed what she was to be. St. Ambrose goes on to explain how he wholeheartedly admires how fearless St. Agnes was towards the people trying to execute her. She showed no sign of distress when she was placed in heavy chains, or when she gave herself up to the soldier with the sword that ended her life. St. Ambrose writes that young girls at age 13 are practically incapable of looking at their parents when they know their parents are mad, but St. Agnes rose above it all. St. Agnes freely walked to the altar where she was ready to stretch forth her hands to Christ at the sacrificial fires and at the sacrilegious altars themselves, to make the sign of the Lord the Conqueror, or again to place her neck and both her hands in the iron bands. But no band could enclose such slender limbs. There was not an ounce of unwillingness in St. Agnes's body that could have partially impacted her decision to hand her life over to Jesus, her Savior. St. Ambrose wrote how St. Agnes did not fit the requirements of the law she was inevitably breaking, but ended up demonstrating extreme heroism. He writes, she would not as a bride so hasten to the couch, as being a virgin she joyfully went to the place of punishment with hurrying step, her head not adorned with plaited hair, but with Christ. St. Agnes was not eager to die, but eager to reunite with her adored spouse, Jesus. St. Ambrose additionally writes how, while all were weeping, St. Agnes did not even shed one tear. No one could understand the strong love that St. Agnes had for Jesus. St. Ambrose concludes by writing, everyone was astounded that there was no one to bear witness to the Godhead, who as yet could not, because of her age, dispose of herself. And she brought it to pass that she should be believed concerning God, whose evidence concerning man would not be accepted, for that which is beyond nature is from the author of nature. Although St. Agnes of Rome's life may not have been lengthy compared to other saints, she left a long-lasting impact on the world which is still apparent today. Her unyielding love and dedication to Jesus is undeniable and especially noteworthy for accomplishing so much in such a short period of time. St. Agnes's devotion, purity, and courage influence others, especially young girls. Her strength inspires hope for those who may be facing what might appear to be insurmountable odds. If society in general was able to follow St. Agnes's lead, perhaps the world would not be faced with so much hatred and bigotry, but rather be filled with love, honor, and respect for humankind.